At 6 p.m. Beijing time on August 12, 2026, Xinhua News Agency was authorized to announce that Zhu Rongji passed away in Beijing at 11:06 a.m. on August 12 after failing to respond to medical treatment. He was 98 years old. Zhu Rongji was born in October 1928 in the capital city of a southern Chinese province. He was a descendant of the 18th son of Zhu Yuanzhang, the founding emperor of the Ming dynasty, and lost both his parents at a young age. Zhu Rongji joined the revolutionary cause in China in December 1948. In October 1949, at the age of 21, he joined the Communist Party of China. From 1947 to 1951, he studied electrical machinery manufacturing at the Department of Electrical Engineering at Tsinghua University, and participated in the New Democratic Youth League. After graduation, he served as Deputy Director of the Production Planning Office in the Planning Division of the Northeast Ministry of Industry. In the 1980s and 1990s, he served as the top official in Shanghai, where he proposed that the city adjust its industrial structure, restructure its competitive advantages, enhance its international competitiveness, and pursue an export-oriented economic path. He drove the development and opening of Pudong into a substantive implementation phase, laying a solid foundation for Shanghai's further reform, opening up, and development. In 1991, Zhu Rongji began serving in the State Council as Vice Premier and Director of the State Council's Economic and Trade Office, overseeing sectors including mechanical and electrical energy, rail transportation, metallurgy and chemicals, and light industry and textiles. In October 1992, Zhu Rongji was elected to the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee at the first plenary session of the 14th CPC Central Committee, entering China's highest level and most confidential leadership echelon, where he was responsible for the day-to-day operations of the State Council. In June 1993, he concurrently assumed the post of Governor of the People's Bank of China. In September 1997, Comrade Zhu Rongji was re-elected as a member and standing committee member of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee at the first plenary session of the 15th CPC Central Committee. In March 1998, at the first session of the 9th National People's Congress, he was appointed Premier of the State Council and later served as Secretary of the Party Leadership Group of the State Council. Faced with the impact of the Asian financial crisis and severe domestic flooding, he followed the Central Committee's directives by shifting from moderately tight fiscal and monetary policies to proactive fiscal and prudent monetary policies. He focused on expanding domestic demand and deepening reforms in key areas, thereby maintaining stable and rapid economic growth. He comprehensively adjusted industrial, regional, and urban-rural structures, vigorously developed high-tech industries, particularly the information technology sector, actively supported the accelerated development of modern service industries, and worked to improve the quality and efficiency of economic growth. He prioritized addressing issues related to agriculture, rural areas, and farmers, promoted agricultural restructuring tailored to local conditions, strengthened poverty alleviation and rural development, and fostered coordinated urban-rural development. He adopted a series of policy measures to expand opening up and encourage exports, maintained the renminbi's exchange rate stability, implemented strategies for market diversification and quality-driven growth, actively attracted foreign investment, made better use of both domestic and international markets and resources, and resolutely safeguarded the prosperity and stability of Hong Kong as an international financial center. He intensified efforts to protect and improve the ecological environment, strengthened the management of resources such as land and minerals, and concentrated efforts on addressing pollution in key river basins and regions. He established systems for basic livelihood security for laid-off workers from state-owned enterprises, unemployment insurance, and the minimum living security for urban residents, and made concerted efforts to resolve issues such as wage arrears and the re-employment of laid-off workers. He continued to transform government functions, advanced government institutional reform, and focused on strengthening the government's own capacity. He devoted immense effort to the fields of economic system reform, science and technology, education, the Great Western Development Initiative, and the defense industry. During Comrade Zhu Rongji's tenure as Vice Premier and Premier of the State Council, China was undergoing a critical transition from a planned economy to a socialist market economy. Under the leadership of the Party Central Committee with Comrade Jiang Zemin at its core, he spearheaded fiscal and tax system reforms, comprehensively implemented major tax reforms centered on equitable tax burdens and a simplified tax system, established a fiscal system based on a revenue-sharing mechanism grounded in a reasonable division of responsibilities between the central and local governments, and conducted pilot programs for rural tax and fee reforms. He actively promoted financial system reform, further standardized the functions of the central bank, deepened reforms in commercial banks, the foreign exchange system, and the securities and futures markets, and advanced the establishment of a nationwide financial market system characterized by uniformity, openness, orderly competition, and strict regulation. He treated the reform of state-owned enterprises as the central link in economic system reform. In accordance with the requirements of clear property rights, clearly defined rights and responsibilities, separation of government and enterprise, and scientific management, he accelerated the development of a modern enterprise system, strategically adjusted the layout of the state-owned economy, and reorganized state-owned enterprises, and emphasized the need to do everything possible to promote the re-employment of laid-off and unemployed workers and to strengthen the social security system. He advanced housing system reform, gradually implemented the monetization of housing allocation, and established and improved a multi-tiered urban housing supply system centered on affordable housing. He continued to deepen reforms of the grain circulation system, implementing open market purchases of farmers' surplus grain at protected prices, ensuring state-owned grain procurement and marketing enterprises sold grain at market prices, and operating grain procurement funds in a closed-loop system, while gradually liberalizing grain procurement markets and prices in major consumption regions. He also presided over the implementation of a series of major reforms, including those of the social security system, the medical and healthcare system, and the investment and financing system, thereby advancing the establishment of the basic framework of a socialist market economy. He led the completion of the arduous negotiations for China's accession to the World Trade Organization, promoting the expansion of China's opening up in both breadth and depth. Zhu Rongji emphasized that government officials must always remember that they are public servants of the people, they must dare to speak the truth, not be afraid of offending others, and refrain from seeking special treatment. With a strong sense of responsibility, they must proactively take on heavy burdens and tackle tough challenges, and make every effort to deliver tangible benefits to the people. In November 2002, Zhu Rongji stepped down as a member of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee, following the first plenary session of the 16th CPC Central Committee. In March 2003, he retired from public life after stepping down as Premier of the State Council. Since his retirement, Zhu Rongji has maintained a low profile, making occasional public appearances at important national meetings and celebrations, as well as at universities. Zhu Rongji is widely recognized within China's top leadership as a senior official, with a deep understanding of modern economic principles and macroeconomic regulation. Having devoted more than half a century to the economic sector, he has accumulated profound theoretical and practical experience. With his keen strategic thinking, decisive and energetic leadership style, forthright and resolute character, and rigorous administrative standards, he has successfully spearheaded major economic reform initiatives, driving them forward efficiently, and achieving historic transformations. These include, most notably, the resolution of inter-enterprise debt, the bursting of the Hainan real estate bubble, the tax-sharing reform, and financial system reform. In 1991, the primary challenge facing Zhu Rongji, who had just assumed the position of vice premier of the State Council, was the severe, triangular debt crisis among state-owned enterprises nationwide, that is, a chain of unpaid debts between enterprises that had brought cash flow to a complete standstill. At that time, the total amount of triangular debt in China had already reached hundreds of billions of yuan, posing a serious threat to economic operations. To address this, Zhu Rongji personally traveled to the 3 northeastern provinces, where debt was most concentrated, to oversee debt settlement efforts on the front lines. He accurately identified the root causes of triangular debt as an excessive gap in fixed asset investment and an irrational product structure, and subsequently proposed a comprehensive set of tough measures, including injecting capital, linking debt reduction to inventory reduction, structural adjustment, tackling the root causes, and sequential debt settlement. The State Council successively injected special funds for debt settlement and mandated that banks and enterprises at all levels settle their debts within a specified time frame. Under this forceful push, it took only 26 days to break the chain of interlinked debts in the Northeast, and the initiative was subsequently rolled out nationwide.
Between 1992 and 1993,
inspired by Deng Xiaoping's remarks during his southern tour, an unprecedented real estate boom swept through Hainan province and the Pearl River Delta region. Countless speculative funds and loans from state-owned banks flooded into Hainan's real estate market, causing housing prices in Haikou, Sanya, and other areas to skyrocket several-fold in a short period, with extremely obvious signs of a bubble economy. On June 23, 1993, Zhu Rongji delivered a speech addressing the macroeconomic situation and decisively took strong measures, announcing a halt to the listing of real estate companies and comprehensive controls on the reckless inflow of bank funds and credit into the real estate sector. The following day, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China and the State Council formally issued the Opinions on the Current Economic Situation and Strengthening Macroeconomic Control, then known as the 16 Points, implementing an extremely stringent monetary tightening policy. Following the central government's macroeconomic control orders, speculative capital that had blindly flowed into Hainan withdrew overnight, and the Hainan real estate bubble immediately burst. Although this move left behind a large number of unfinished buildings and bank bad debts in Hainan and other areas, it successfully curbed a more destructive, vicious asset bubble on a national scale, and prevented a systemic financial crisis from occurring. In 1994, under Zhu Rongji's leadership, the State Council of China launched a comprehensive round of institutional reforms across 6 areas: fiscal and tax systems, the financial system, the investment system, enterprise systems, housing systems, and the pricing system, in a single push, aiming to thoroughly establish the basic institutional framework of a socialist market economy. In terms of fiscal and tax system reform, Zhu Rongji vigorously promoted the tax-sharing reform. Previously, China had implemented a system of comprehensive local fiscal autonomy, which led to a weak central government scenario characterized by the central government's budget increasingly falling short of its needs, while local finances became excessively bloated. The tax-sharing system classified tax categories into central taxes, local taxes, and taxes shared between the central and local governments, and established 2 separate systems: the State Taxation Administration and the Local Taxation Bureaus. This reform successfully reversed the passive situation facing the central government's finances, significantly increasing the share of central government revenue in total national revenue from less than 30% to over 50%, thereby strengthening the central government's financial capacity for macroeconomic regulation and regional coordination. However, the tax-sharing system also brought about far-reaching side effects, as fiscal authority was centralized while administrative responsibilities remained with local governments. Grassroots local governments faced severe fiscal constraints. To bridge the fiscal gap, local governments gradually shifted toward relying on urban development and land sales, which objectively fueled the land-based fiscal model and high housing prices over the subsequent decades. In the area of financial system reform, Zhu Rongji focused on breaking the old pattern in which state-owned banks served as cash machines for local officials and business people with government connections. He spearheaded the transformation of the People's Bank of China into a truly independent central bank responsible for monetary policy and financial regulation. At the same time, he commercialized the existing state-owned specialized banks and successively established policy banks such as the China Development Bank, the Export-Import Bank of China, and the Agricultural Development Bank of China, thereby separating policy-based lending functions from commercial operations and laying the groundwork for a modern financial system. In the realm of foreign economic relations, on January 1, 1994, Zhu Rongji decisively abolished the dual-track system of official and market exchange rates for the renminbi, unifying the exchange rate and implementing a single, managed floating exchange rate system based on market supply and demand. This move significantly boosted China's export trade. At the same time, the abolition of the dual-track system for domestic prices and their alignment with market mechanisms largely eliminated the opportunities previously available to officials to engage in rent-seeking and speculative trading by exploiting price differentials in allocated goods. During his tenure overseeing economic affairs and serving as vice premier, Zhu Rongji was renowned for his decisive, uncompromising, and resolute leadership style in the face of extremely complex and intractable resistance from vested interests. Although the series of reforms he spearheaded were accompanied by immense social upheaval, including a wave of layoffs in state-owned enterprises and pressure on local finances, they successfully laid a solid institutional foundation for the Chinese economy's takeoff in the 21st century and the country's accession to the World Trade Organization. Due to his iron-fisted approach in the economic sphere, he was widely dubbed the economic Tsar by Western media and academic circles both at home and abroad. In addition, Zhu Rongji earned widespread praise for the anti-corruption efforts, administrative streamlining, and improvements in the operational efficiency of state-owned enterprises that he vigorously promoted during his tenure. However, the severe social upheaval accompanying these radical reforms also sparked prolonged reflection and dissent across all sectors of society and the academic community. While Zhu Rongji's radical and hard-landing reforms achieved tremendous macroeconomic success, they also exacted a heavy transitional cost on Chinese society, a fact that remains widely debated to this day. Regardless of how historical assessments may evolve, it is undeniable that during Zhu Rongji's tenure as premier, China's material wealth, industrial manufacturing capacity, and agricultural production all achieved historic leaps, completely reversing the situation of absolute famine and widespread material scarcity that had remained unresolved for thousands of years in Chinese history. At the same time, through forceful macroeconomic regulation, the overheated economy was successfully steered toward a soft landing, and the hyperinflation that had long plagued the economy was eliminated.
Between 1998 and 1999,
a stable situation emerged, extremely rare in China's modern history, in which the consumer price index declined slightly for 2 consecutive years, and overall social tensions were relatively mitigated amid rapid economic growth. Some economic observers believe that the enormous fiscal wealth and institutional dividends accumulated during Zhu Rongji's tenure through the 3 major reforms, taxation, state-owned enterprises, and finance, laid a solid foundation for the subsequent golden decade of economic growth that followed when Jiabao took office as premier. The obituary released by Xinhua news agency paid him high tribute, describing him as an outstanding member of the Communist Party of China, a time-tested and loyal communist fighter, an outstanding proletarian revolutionary and statesman, and an exceptional leader of the party and the nation.